joy is a choice. It's not a circumstance. I love to quote Nightbird. She was a singer on, America's Got Talent. And she said, you can't wait until life stops being hard to decide to be happy.
Welcome to the Spirits Beside Us podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lippincott. I'm an ex-Wall Street analyst turned international medium, spiritual teacher, and best-selling author. Each week we'll dive into the fascinating and uplifting arena of the non-physical world to help you deepen your understanding and spiritual connection to the unseen realm. We'll also share a behind-the-scenes look with others who've done the same and speak with experts in the field about their experiences. Pull up a seat and let's dive into these perspective-changing conversations. Welcome again, everybody, back to another episode of Spirits Beside Us. And today I am so honored to have with us a great guest and a great friend, Julie Speetjens. And she needs no introduction because she is one of the most wonderful healing modalities, one of the most healing abilities, as well as somebody who has really morphed from her background. So I'll let her discuss her background, where she came from, and how she even got to where she is today. So with that great introduction, Julie, welcome to the show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks. I'm honored to be on. I appreciate it.
Well, tell us a little bit about your unusual background, because most people would think, oh, gosh, I've got to have this perfect lineup. It's like I have to have this perfect resume in order to go do what it is that I do. But you seem to have broken the mold. You came from someplace completely different. Tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks. So I was an IT project manager. My degree was environmental science. We're talking as left brain gets. I did not grow up seeing spirits. I did not grow up as a psychic medium. I didn't grow up in a house that would have condoned or nourished that ability if I'd had it. But for me, I completely shifted from corporate to cosmic in my 40s. Yeah, it was during my Reiki training where suddenly my psychic mediumship abilities opened up, and it was a spontaneous thing, and I've been hooked ever since. And for me, really, it was a bit of a perfect storm. As an IT project manager, I was commuting back and forth for a week at a time from Colorado to Manhattan, and working in Hong Kong and Thailand, and it was a dynamic and exciting career, but I was burnt out. And in that same moment, heck of a commute, right? In the same moment, the universe put me into a wheelchair to get me to slow down. I had to have major surgery on both hips and had to learn to walk again. Wow. And at the same moment that all was going on, my best friend of 25 years was in a tragic car accident, and her 8-year-old son was killed. Ooh. So and I just got chills. The combination of all of that together is what sent me searching for, I didn't know what at the time, but healing, certainly of some kind, because, when you take all of these symptoms, my body was just screaming at me. I developed a thyroid disorder. I developed eczema, insomnia, food intolerances, you name it. I was drinking too much. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was drinking too much. We self-medicate with the only tools we have. And when I went to a primary care physician, all she could offer me was antidepressants. And I'm not taking anything away from the miracles of modern pharmaceuticals. Sometimes we need that. But for me, it felt like a Band-Aid. And I really didn't want to just treat the symptoms and chase them around. I wanted a cure. And so luckily Reiki found me, and it just absolutely shifted my life 180 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you find that Reiki was the path that you wanted to follow? I mean, you were introduced to, Reiki, and then pretty soon you started taking and learning more and more of the modalities, to the point where you became a master and then a master teacher. And then, now you're, whatever the highest level of Reiki-ism is. How do you climb that ladder?
Thanks. It's kind of like tattoos. Everyone says you can't just get one. I don't have any. But that's the way it is with Reiki certifications. Yeah, it's like Lay's potato chips. You can't just have one. Yeah, I don't know. But for me, I'm not the kind of person who can just hear someone say it worked for them and suddenly I'll believe it. I had to feel it for myself. And so I was receiving Reiki as a client, as a participant, and I could feel it. I could feel the tingling. I could feel the heaviness, the floatiness, the peacefulness, the lightness and brightness afterwards. It tuned me into an aspect of myself that had just utterly been malnourished and neglected. I didn't know it was there. I didn't know we had an energy body. I was just doing the human thing, paying the bills, raising the kids, working the job, building the company, right? Rinse and repeat day after day after day. And of course, I had this underlying feeling that something was missing, but I had no idea what it was. And so for me, Reiki just absolutely opened that up. Well, I'm the kind of person, once I get passionate about something, I have to do it to the nth degree.
Right.
So as you mentioned, I did the 1-2 practitioner training, and then the master training, and then the Karuna training, and then I became a certified medical Reiki master with the Raven Keys organization. And of course, now I teach. I never thought I'd teach, never thought I'd have a studio. I got into Reiki purely for my own healing. And then, as I know has happened to you, you start getting reading after reading after reading as a recipient, and they're going, you're supposed to be teaching. You're supposed to be writing a book. And then after about 50 people say the same thing, you go, okay. And now I love it. So I'm so grateful.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's always once you're basically being hit over the head by the volume of data that starts to force you. You do know you need to do this, don't you? We eventually give in.
Yeah.
We're like, no, I don't want to do this.
I don't want
to.
Yep.
Mommy, help me.
Yep. Yeah.
So what is it, for people who might not be as familiar with Reiki? What is Reiki in general, and what can it do to a person? How does it work? Why does it work?
Those are some big questions. I will answer them as best I can, because as much as we try to left brain it, and we try to understand the symbols and the hand positions and the history and the lineage and the framework and the process, at some point, and Raven Keys had the best term for this in her medical Reiki book, which is fabulous. I highly recommend people read it. She said it invites us to be mystery grateful. And I just love that term. The teaching is that it's a Japanese energy healing modality. You've heard of your aura and your chakras. Turns out those are real. And they're really important. It's actually the first layer of our immune system. And all of our aches and pains and diseases begin first in our biofield before they ever manifest physically. So Reiki is just chi. It's prana. It's life force energy. We're made of it. And when we receive a Reiki healing session, it goes wherever it's needed most. So it may treat us physically. It may treat us emotionally, mentally, spiritually. We can send it into the past or the future. There are no rules or limits in Reiki other than the ones we as humans try to put on it to make it more manageable, to wrap our brains around it. I think there's always been some version, some form of Reiki. Hands-on healing is nothing new, certainly, right? That's been around forever.
For ages, yeah.
It was just rediscovered by a Tibetan monk, Mikao Usui, 102 years ago in Japan. And he opened a Reiki clinic after he'd had this wonderful enlightenment moment on Mount Kurama. And actually, I'm so blessed I was able to go to Mount Kurama this spring in Japan and lead Reiki attunements for a group where Mikao Usui received Reiki. So that was really special for me personally. And interestingly, this isn't just philosophical stuff. I mean, it's physics, but I will say personally, I had a frozen shoulder for years before I went to Mount Kurama this spring. And I had tried every treatment, all across the spectrum, allopathic, homeopathic, you name it. I had done it all. My shoulder hasn't hurt since Mount Kurama.
Wow.
Just saying, that's just my personal experience. So there's absolutely something to this.
And is Reiki involved with the whole theory that, all of our maladies start first in the aura, in the outer layers of the aura, and progressively move inward until they're finally manifested in the body?
Yes. That's the idea. It invites us to become aware of our emotions, our thoughts, and how that can create illness within us or how it can help make us well, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many different sensations involved with receiving Reiki. Lots of people get waves of tingles, like when music gives you goosebumps, that frisson feeling, that's very, very common. I always get that when I'm receiving Reiki. Some people, their arms they feel very, very heavy, as if they couldn't move them. If they needed to, they could if they needed to, but they don't want to. It's that same, like that hypnagogic state. What we're doing really is we're helping people shift out of that busy beta brainwave, that fight or flight response that's dumping cortisol in our bodies and wreaking all sorts of havoc. And we're helping people shift to a theta brainwave state. And when we do that, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks on. All the body's natural healing abilities have this blissful moment to work. There's a lovely book by Anne Baldwin called Reiki in Clinical Practice. And it's all these incredible studies, peer-reviewed empirical data of how Reiki shifts our vital statistics. And interestingly, I like to see it for myself. I like to feel it for myself. And I can tell this story because he's okay. But a colleague of mine had a widowmaker heart attack and survived. And it just so happened that the morning after his heart attack, I was at the hospital volunteering in the oncology infusion center, offering Reiki to people through the LifeSpark program, who were undergoing chemotherapy. And he told me what had happened. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm already in the hospital. I'll be right up. May I give you Reiki? And he was hooked up to 1,000 different machines. So I was able to watch his vital statistics shift during the Reiki session.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, of course, the science geek in me was just, mesmerized. This is not just philosophical stuff. This is real. And it's
happen.
Yes. We can measure it.
Oh, that's great. That is great. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I get really excited about medical Reiki. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say, now there are some people who say, oh, well, Reiki is just a bunch of, mumbo jumbo, and, they're talking, and, they talk down to it. And, what would you say to those people who are sort of the naysayers of Reiki and, the spiritual energy healing?
I totally get it. I'm with you. I hear you and I feel you because I came to it so skeptical. I would say be skeptical but receptive. Always with spiritual stuff, be discerning. Because I do think there is some woo out there, mumbo jumbo. There's actually this lovely book called Why Woo Woo Works. It's by Dr. David Hamilton. And I love it. Yeah, it's a brilliant and very practical, pragmatic review of a lot of these, kind of out there sounding modalities. But I say find what works for you. Nothing is a silver bullet. For me, I like to come at things from a physical perspective, an energetic perspective, a spiritual perspective, emotional. We are such a complicated amalgamation of all of those things that when we're suffering for whatever reason, I think we need to address things from all different areas. And why wouldn't we use every tool we have at our disposal? Eastern, Western, allopathic, homeopathic, whatever works for you. You are a unique individual. You're a sovereign being. I would say be brave, be discerning, be skeptical, sure, but be open, because it all sounds like madness, and yet here we are. I didn't grow up as a psychic medium, and I became one through my Reiki training. I mean, I'm not here to convince or convert anybody. I can just tell you the truth of my experience.
So let's talk about that. How did you got so involved in your Reiki healing and everything that was going on with that? How did you then soon begin to realize you had this opportunity to connect with spirit and to become a spiritual medium, and you were able to communicate with spirit? How'd that take off?
Thanks. For me, it was a spontaneous awakening. A friend of mine was kind enough to be my Reiki guinea pig. So it was about 6 weeks after I took my master teacher certification. And it was one of those where I was still in it just for me, didn't have a clue about the shift that was coming. And I had started walking around, and just throughout the day, my hands and feet would start tingling. When I was just thinking about Reiki, I wasn't intending for it to flow. I wasn't focused. I wasn't administering it to anybody. I now know that was my hand and foot chakras opening up. But I just kept feeling this tingling like, okay, there's something more to this. Maybe I should offer this to other people. And so a friend was kind enough to come over and listen to me talk about my weird thing, right? And I was midway through a session with her, and I had this sudden awareness of her mother in spirit. Now, I didn't know her mother in the physical, and I didn't know anything about her mom. I knew she'd been gone about 10 years. That's about it. She hadn't talked about it much, I hadn't talked about her mother much, really. And I hadn't asked. And all of a sudden, it just washed over me, this knowingness that her name started with a P and had 2 syllables, that she loved houseplants, and that she'd given my friend a necklace for her 16th birthday. And of course, I'm just sitting there arguing with myself, right? Like we all do, like, oh, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making this up? Oh my gosh, my friend's going to think I'm crazy. Am I crazy? Have I gone down the rabbit hole? What's happening here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Luckily, her mother washed me just and utterly infused me with this feeling of unconditional love. And I mean, it about knocked me over. Tears were just streaming down my face. It was like that moment, and I know some of your listeners have children or beloved fur babies or whatever, where, I'd just like as if I'd been pregnant forever and been in labor forever, and they finally hand you that baby and your heart just goes, poof. That was the feeling her mother gave to me in that moment. And I thought, oh, who am I to deny them this moment of reunion if it's real? How get my ego out of the way? This isn't about me. This is something bigger. Thankfully, it gave me the courage. This work demands such courage all the time. It's a trust fall every time. And so luckily afterwards, I said to my friend, I know this sounds crazy, but did your mother's name start with a P? Did it have 2 syllables? Blah, 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 right? And I mean, just the tears started for both of us. Her mother's name was Pauline. And she had a whole room in her house dedicated to houseplants, and my friend was wearing the necklace her mother had given her.
Wow.
So yeah. I've been in every class and mentorship and workshop and read every book ever since, because, God, what greater healing can there possibly be than not just thinking or believing that we are eternal soul beings and that our loved ones are not lost to us and that we are still connected and that they are still part of our lives, but actually knowing it?
Yes.
That's the best feeling in the world.
They're still alive. They're still involved with us. Nothing has changed. The only thing that's changed is they've shed their overcoat. Other than that, everything is identical.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the amazing thing. That's what every time I give a reading, that's the one thing that comes through. They pound it through to our heads.
Mm-hmm. I'm still here. Amazing. Yeah. You're the one doing the hard thing. Yeah. I equate it to like a rental car. Like we're the driver of this body is like a rental car. And when we cross over, we just step out of the rental car. We're still us. We've just shifted.
Exactly. Or we're wearing these clothes on loan.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually we say, okay, we've got to give the clothes back. Time to
go home.
Clothes aren't. Yeah, time to go home where clothes aren't worn.
Exactly. Yeah, I think
the
of
nudist
Earth
colony up there.
Yeah, right. I think of it sort of like a dirty camping trip. Earth, our lives on Earth in general.
Yeah, dirty camping trip. That sounds good. I like that.
Yeah,
that'll be the title of the show, the dirty camping trip.
Oh, that could go a lot of ways wrong.
Oh, it could.
I like it.
But yeah, it's so true. And there have been so many times I've heard people who either have undergone Reiki or have given Reiki, where it's that connection that all of a sudden they're opening up and they're doing just what you had experienced.
Yeah.
And then they get to that ethical dilemma. Do I tell them?
Right.
Which is, that's a whole nother ball of,
Sure.
Can of
Not everyone's ready to hear that. Not everyone's open to hearing from their loved ones in spirit. So it is. It's a fine line you walk, and you have to honor people's trauma and grief,
Right.
That's why I say I'm not here to convince or convert anybody. So I would never just walk up to someone on a street and say, hey, I've got your grandma here. I think that's rude and invasive.
Oh, I mean, there is a woman on the East Coast who's well known for doing that.
Mm.
And I just cringe every time that's the way it gets produced. I'm like, no.
Oh.
But it is what it is. So, you've had such amazing experiences, and now you're working for arguably, one of your teachers, Tony Stockwell. So that's another something that's come full circle. You were one of his students. Now you're one of his assistants. Talk about that. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah. I know, pinch me, right? I'm still kind of dreaming about that one. That's whose life is this, But yeah, Tony Stockwell is one of the world's best psychic mediums. He's been at this for over 35 years. He lives in England. And like you said, I took every class he offered for several years online. And I went to the Omega Institute and attended classes with him there in person. And I went to Arthur Findlay College in England and attended classes with him there. And he's an earth angel. I don't know how else to describe it. He's absolutely inspirational. His energy is amazing. He's the most genuinely kind, thoughtful, heart-centered, soul-abundant human being I've ever met. And of course, his skills and talents and gifts are just next level, utterly next level. And, in I'll lovingly call it my muggle life, I was, also an event coordinator. And so it just evolved. I said, hey, Tony, if you want any help building up your U.S. audience, I'd be happy to, help with PR, help get you on podcasts and help coordinate online events. And so now quarterly we're doing an event we call Zintar Speaks. And if your listeners have never heard of trance mediumship, that's a whole little Pandora's box. And it's mesmerizing. It's fascinating. It'll give you goosebumps. Most people are pretty comfortable, maybe, with the idea of mental mediumship, where the medium is connecting to spirit and bringing through evidence and messages and encouragements and, all these wonderful things. And that's beautiful. However, in trance mediumship, the medium is stepping even further away in their awareness to make room so spirit can speak through them directly. And when Tony does it, and there are other masterful trance mediums out there, but when Tony does it, everything shifts. His face shifts, his voice shifts, his accent changes, the words he uses change. I mean, it's undeniable and phenomenal feeling just to be part of it. So I'm over the moon to be any tiny part of the good that he is doing here on Earth, because honestly, he's just that good.
Yeah, I can remember the first time he let me sit a one-on-one with him doing Zintar, and that meeting just blew me away. I was like, oh my God, because I had just gotten into learning trance mediumship, and so he's like, oh well, let's have a sit down with Zintar. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And he comes through, and I'm just like, I felt like I was standing on an earthquake or something. It was just insane.
Yeah, it's electrifying.
And to this day, it's totally electrifying. And to this day, I can remember everything that Zintar said. And it was really powerful.
Yeah. And, he'll talk about past life things. When we were at Omega and he did a demonstration and Zintar came through, he offered a healing to a woman. And, he had her come up to where Tony was sitting, and Zintar put Tony's hand, right to this spot on her lower back and started talking about, you bear the scars of battles fought in another life. And of course, we're all fascinated, like, oh, we can't wait to ask her what this is all about, right? So after the demonstration, we all go running over to her like, oh my gosh, what's up with your back? Like, tell us there's something to that. And she lifts up, the back of her shirt, and there was a birthmark in the exact spot that Zintar had touched, and tears were just streaming down her face. She said, I've had pain there my whole life, and it's gone for the first time.
Oh my God.
I mean, you just can't make this stuff up.
No, in fact, you're right. Now I remember when I used to go to Journey Within Spiritualist Church in Pompton Lakes, and Janet used to teach there. Tony would go there every so often. I think it was before the pandemic. And he would have Zintar. And so the Zintar would go in the basement and the lights went down. And he'd be doing these healing sessions. He'd say, if there's anybody who wants a healing, please raise your hand, come forward, whatever. And he'd touch, he'd kind of do this, whatever, electronic sensor of what part of your body was wrong. And then he'd figure it out and then touch that body and then say, okay, it is done. And then the person kind of quizzically walked away, and then they're like, wow, it's gone.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, wow. So just to your point.
Yep. It can be phenomenal.
It is. It's great. And I love trance mediumship, and I'm just also getting into physical mediumship. That too is
that's
really
so
amazing.
Interesting. Yes.
It's so cool.
Yeah. That's another one of those be skeptical but receptive, right? Of course, it's got a long history of people being accused of fraud, and it has to be done in low light or no light because the phenomena is sensitive to light. I get it. However, if you've ever been to a seance with a true physical medium, it is undeniably electric and phenomenal. I saw Dave Thompson in Santa Fe, and, various voices were all over the room. He's, of course, zip tied to a chair as they do. Everyone's been patted down. It's all a very carefully set up environment to avoid, accusations of fraud. Things were moving. There were apports, that's when items appear that weren't there when the seance started. I mean, it all sounds incredulous and completely bonkers. I get it. But I've seen it several times now, and with mediums who were developing with me, who I knew to be completely coming from a space of integrity, coming from a space, they're not trying to show off. They weren't making any promises,
Right.
And something as simple as table tipping is a nice way to get into that. Yeah.
Yes.
It's just the most fun. And it's one of those, it proves it, as much as I've now given and received these readings. Sometimes I'm still going, is this for really, are we really?
Yeah.
And then and then again, you see it, you experience it, you feel the energy of it, and you go, oh, okay, that's what we're doing here.
About. It's real. Yeah, because for me, I mean, I'm, coming from the finance world, I'm Mr. Prove It. You gotta prove it to me. But so to this day, I'm still skeptical of everything all these miraculous things that happen. I'm still like, huh? How'd that happen? But there was one time, what I was telling you before the show, where I was in one of my mentor's places, and she said, let's do some table tipping today. And I'm like, what? And so, she's got this round table, and we all gently put our fingers around the table, and then the table starts to shake. And I'm like looking around, trying to say, okay,
who's moving it?
What's who's moving it? What's the game? But I'm looking around, and the rest of us are equally noobs, having no idea what this is. And then the table starts moving higher and higher and higher, and we're watching this thing, and it's like spinning, and then we're asking it questions, and then it would move based on the question, and then we'd say, can you flip over? And sure enough, the table would just flip around to 180 degrees, flip, and people would like move their arms over it or under it to make sure there's no gimmicks, because this is in the woman's place. It's in her shop.
Try making a table
school.
Do that.
Yeah.
Try.
And so when it's surrounded by everybody else who's like, doing this to make sure there are no cables on top, you'd see them.
Yep.
And it was like, that's when I just, my heart just like dropped, going, oh my God.
It's real. Yep. I love those moments.
That's when I just had to, Spirit basically slapped me upside the head and said, see, we are real.
Right. Oh my God. I love it. Well, and I'm so excited. I'm also working with Mainsgate, which is, the story of how this family came to purchase this property. It's the 1600s plantation home on the eastern shore of Maryland. And it's actually come through in a Zintar demonstration before, that the couple that purchased this property just a few years ago was basically called home, that they had actually served as slaves on this property. And now they are caretakers of the property in their current physical existence. And they're doing lots of wonderful things there, but they are also doing these spiritual development workshops. And so August 30th, Sharon Harvey and her daughter Carrie are coming over from the UK. Those are Arthur Finley Sharon's an Arthur Finley tutor, and they're going to be doing a physical mediumship weekend workshop. So teaching people how to develop their own physical mediumship, to start their own home circles, and demonstrating, of course, all this incredible phenomena that they've developed, learned, that they co-create with spirit, however you want to think about it, sitting for physical for 30 years. So it's just going to be phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's such a rare thing.
And today it is. And it wasn't so rare, back in the, 1900s, early 1800s, because, today everything, the world is so fast. We're all on our devices. We're all moving 1,000 miles a minute. Back then it was so much slower, so much quieter. We were much more into the peace and quiet of the surroundings so that we could better connect with spirit. Now it takes a real effort to do that.
Well, and I think we've lost the patience required for some of this development. Yeah. If you read books about some of the spiritualist pioneers and other physical mediums, they had incredible phenomena, but they sat with these same circle of people for a decade before they started getting the phenomena. Come on, I can't even keep a band together for 6 months. You want to tell me I can get a circle of people to meet weekly for 10 years without any results, and that come on. I don't want to wait 5 minutes for my food,
Yeah, right. Come on. That microwave is taking too long.
Way too long. We've lost that sense of patience that they used to have.
Yeah, completely. So that's kind of the big thing. But you also are taking your Reiki talents and abilities to hospitals and to areas where there's sort of like, cancer wards and what have you. Talk about that. How's that been received? How, what differences, if any, are you seeing?
Thanks. Yeah. So especially during COVID, because, talk about an immunocompromised population of people that are going through chemotherapy. It suddenly, people became open, not only to this idea that energy healing may help me through this journey, but also that it works distantly, because all of the sessions were done distantly over Zoom. And I did it through this wonderful organization called LifeSpark, and it's a nonprofit. It's been around for almost 30 years now. It's based out of Colorado, but we now have providers and recipients all over the world. Another wonderful, thank goodness, a good thing that came out of COVID. And it's all volunteers. It's incredible to witness people who are in such a scary and vulnerable chapter of their lives. They've received this frightening diagnosis, and suddenly they're looking around going, anybody, please help me. And you have this wonderful heart-centered group of volunteers who are raising their hands saying, I would be honored to support you through this journey. And the website is lifesparknow.org. Even if you're in remission, if you or a loved one is going through a cancer journey, you can sign up to receive free Reiki or free healing touch. That's just another modality of energy healing, equally effective and very similar sensations. And they also offer healing sessions to the primary caregiver. So if you've ever, if you're caring for someone with cancer, you need energetic support too. And so I think that's lovely. And it was through LifeSpark that I was able to get into the hospitals because, of course, as they should be, they're very discerning about who they will allow to come in to offer healing to someone. And so at the oncology, the outpatient infusion center, that's where they allow us to work here in Colorado Springs at UC Memorial Hospital. And most people are really open to it. I sort of have this little elevator pitch and they think, okay, good vibes. I'll take some good vibes. Sure. Come on in. Why not? I'm sitting here for 7 hours hooked up to poison. Anything that would make me even feel a little bit better, even if it's just the placebo effect, I'll take it. Well, of course, we know there's a lot more to it than just the placebo effect, but I find it really gratifying. And then there are so many people who are recipients of energy healing in LifeSpark. They go on to heal. And then just like it hooked me, it hooks them. They get certified. They get their training. They begin offering it to others to give back. So it's just this wonderful cycle of the wounded healer, becoming the healer themselves.
That seems to be the way it is in almost everything. The most powerful, the most successful, the most driven healers in some way, shape, or form had to have undergone the dark night of the soul, had to have undergone the pain, because they know what it's like. That's their motive. That's their, modus operandi to help others get out of that state.
Yeah, for sure.
Which explains why most of us mediums, we know we're all crazy. We know we got screws loose because
the cracks are how the light gets in. We're not broken. We're just bent.
There you go.
We're a little cracked.
We've been cracked up, and the light comes in. That's the only way we know that there's light out there.
Yeah, which I'm certain is why we go through those challenging chapters of our lives. To get us to tune in.
Yeah, to get us to kind of like a wake up. Because I can remember, and I've told this story multiple times, where right after my spiritual awakening, I remember looking up to the sky. Why I was looking at the sky, I have no idea. But I was just kind of proverbial looking up at the sky and going, why me? I'm just a regular guy. And before I could even finish the answer, and the question rather, they were already answering me.
Yeah.
Because you're a regular guy. And I'm like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Damn, you guys are smart. I was like, oh, all right. You guys have a plan, apparently. I don't.
Yeah.
So that was very funny.
I love that.
So what are, we're talking about challenges now. We're talking about, things we've all been through that have helped us to be better on the other side, to see greater and understand more on the other side. What would you say would be some of your biggest challenges that have made you who you are today?
Let's see. I would say being a mom, and I have fabulous children. I have to say, they were just drawn that way. They're excellent children. And yet still I was a stay-at-home mom for a decade. That was hard. And it was relentless, and it was psychologically very challenging. And then, of course, the perfect storm that I alluded to earlier. It's a lot. Life is hard. This human stuff is not for the weak.
No.
It doesn't come with an instruction manual, and we're told to believe in afterlife and believe in God and this, that, and the other. But man, we've got to come to it and our understanding of it in our own way. And most of us don't come to it easily. Like you alluded to, we walk through this crucible. We have to find ourselves in our lowest moments. And it's almost like, I guess it's part of the plan, but we have to get sick of our own BS, sick of our own excuses, sick of our own negative thought emotion loops. We have to get really sick of ourselves and sick of feeling sick before we're willing to open our minds and go searching for the answers that heal us.
There's got to be a catalyst for change. Something has to force that catalyst, force that change, force that desire, because otherwise we'll just be like a zombie walking through life and never experiencing it. Which kind of brings me to the next question is, how important is it for people to focus on living their joy, regardless of what they have now and what their circumstances might be? How important is that?
It's huge. Joy is a choice. That's not a circumstance. I love to quote Nightbird. She was a singer on, America's Got Talent. And she said, you can't wait until life stops being hard to decide to be happy.
That's great.
And don't you just love that? And she was on a cancer journey. And I listen to Esther Hicks. She channels Abraham, and they talk a lot about law of attraction and choosing to experience the emotions, to think the thoughts that magnetize all the good stuff to you, to invest in your own sense of worthiness, your own sense of self-love. I think so many of us go through life thinking we're not enough of whatever and too much of whatever else. And it's when we just decide, I'm good enough, I'm perfectly imperfect. And when we choose to love ourselves the way I now understand that Source, God, Spirit, the universe, however you want to think about it, loves each and every one of us, that's where the magic starts to happen. But it can't if you're in your mind, if you're criticizing yourself. I've got the inner mean girl, just like anybody else, and she chatters a lot. I actually found myself in meditation one time putting a piece of duct tape over her mouth. Like, enough. I've heard enough. Yes, I know where this goes. I've thought that thought before. I can go on that spiral, but it doesn't serve me. It's destructive, even though it's familiar. And so I still, to this day, will stop myself, catch myself when I start going on these, negative, critical, fear-based loops or whatever, telling me I'm not enough or I'm too much or this, that, or the other. And I just say, I've heard enough. Let's think the thought that nourishes the better feeling emotion so that I can magnetize to me all these incredible life experiences that I'm now open to, that I'm deserving of, that we're all deserving of. And I honestly believe anybody who's interested in this stuff, who's drawn to this, can be a psychic or a medium or both. It's just, it's soul-to-soul communication. It's from spirit through spirit to spirit. And we are all souls and spirits. We just happen to be in these ridiculous meat suits, if you will, temporarily.
Exactly, 100%. That's the whole thing. I'm always saying is that the one thing that really kind of brought me over the bridge, as it were, was the concept of quantum physics. A little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing.
Yes.
But, I started fiddling around with quantum physics and started understanding that 99.999% of everything in existence is just energy. It's empty space, energy. And so we're energy, we're empty space. And the things that we actually think we're touching, we're not touching anything. It's all empty space. It's all energy that forces us. So we're actually literally creating our reality every second, because the reality that's out there is an illusion. Our eyes are creating it. Our ears are hearing. And so based on that, we can literally create our own reality because we shape our energy.
Yeah. And I have a really fun story about quantum mechanics. And who says that, right? but I do.
Exactly.
But I do. A couple of years ago now, I was receiving a reading from a fellow student, and she started describing my college professor. And I thought, gosh, it sure sounds like Dr. Passerini, but I don't even know if he's crossed over. We kind of lost track after college, as you do, right? Even though, he was my advisor, we were really close, but, life happens. And so as she's talking and bringing through all this evidence, I'm Googling, looking for his obituary. And I love this because sometimes in mediumship, we think, oh, we're just psychometrizing the soul. They're just reading energy that's in our awareness, something like that. It was not in my awareness, but I found it on Google. He had crossed over 2 months earlier. Sure enough, he was on the other side. I didn't know that. She wasn't just picking it up in my energy. She had Ed with her. And she launches into this whole thing. He's telling me, you've stepped into this healing role, but you're struggling with this idea of distant healing. And let me take a step back here and tell you, Ed was the smartest man I ever knew. He had a degree in physics from Harvard. He had a degree in literature from Virginia. He wrote all the books for all of the classes he taught. He was next level. Wow. I admired him, still do. And she said, he says he's working with brilliant minds on the other side, probably Einstein, because that was his caliber, right? And he says, quantum mechanics is amazing. The science checks out. Just trust it. How do you get a medium to say quantum mechanics? I'm still in awe. I don't know what is that, firsthand, secondhand, but Dr. Passerini says the science checks out and just trust it.
Yeah, I mean that was the one thing that got me over. I'm like, all right, I'm signing up. It's like I always joke, like I say, I'm the doubting Thomas, of the group. Like in our physical circles, I'm like I'm the doubting Thomas. Is like, is that really somebody who's making noise, or is that something that's being picked up by somebody else's mic down the street?
Right. Yep. Yeah. I love, I'll take all the validation I can get. Just relentless validation, please.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, if after a while it becomes so inordinately large amounts of data, you're just like, okay, I give.
Yep. But keep it coming because I still love it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Keep it coming. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a whole section on my website dedicated to these God winks and wow moments, where these incredible synchronicities happen or these incredible validations happen. And it's undeniable. I love those moments.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
What would you say would be if you were even able to, the single most amazing mediumship or Reiki experience that you've ever had the privilege of witnessing or giving? Or
there are so many at this point that legitimately I've had to start putting them on my website. I'll say one of the more fun ones. Well, actually 3 come to mind. Okay, so I'll be quick. The first one is about spirit guides. The second one is about past lives. And the last one is about the idea of our higher soul selves. Okay, so bear with me. I believe we all, and now I know, I don't just believe, I know, we all have a team of spirit guides, angels, helpers, teachers, inspirers who are not in the physical, who are in the soul form, right, at the higher energetic realms. And I of course, I think they'll appear to us with any costume on that's approachable to us. For me, in my Reiki training, I had just become aware of a Tibetan Buddhist monk years ago. Saffron robes, shaved head, looks like the Dalai Lama. That was my reference for it. And so I just call him monk. I always see him feel him. I'm aware of him over my shoulder when I'm administering Reiki. But it's not like I talked about him. It's not like I publicized anything about him. Anyway, he was just monk. And I had a referral to get a spirit portrait done through this fabulous intuitive artist in the UK. Her name is Leanne Higgs. And so I sent off my little $70 or whatever it was. It was just in an email. She didn't even get me on Zoom. We weren't on the phone. She didn't know anything about me. And she said, thanks so much. I'm a little backed up. Might be like 8 weeks or so. And I kind of forgot about it. And then one morning I opened up my email and I swear to you, monk, as I've always envisioned him in my mind, my imaginary friend, whatever I thought he was, a drawing of monk was staring at me out of my email. Saffron robes, shaved head, the whole thing. I mean, it just stunned me. And I have I'm still speechless. I have no other explanation for it. And also it came with a reading and she tuned into some really interesting, specific evidential details that I can also validate. I mean, it's just, you can't make this stuff up. So that's one about spirit guides. You've got them and they're real. The next one, past lives. This was so interesting. Just a few weeks ago, I had a new client come into my studio. She wanted a past life reading. She didn't tell me anything. I didn't know anything about her. I think sometimes people think, oh, we're Googling stuff or looking it up on Facebook or whatever, right? First off, I don't have the time and I wouldn't dare because the sheer volume of resources and time I've now spent on developing this ability is nearly embarrassing. I really want it to work. That's a side note. But so this woman sits in front of me and I lead her through this little meditation and suddenly I am in Pompeii. I am there as Mount Vesuvius is erupting. I am a 6-year-old little girl clinging to my mother's skirts, and I could feel the hot ash as I was trying to breathe, and I could feel the terror. I could feel my mother trying to protect me. And I'm explaining all of this to my client. And when I get all through, I open my eyes, and she just has tears streaming down her face. She's had a lifelong phobia of asphyxiation.
Wow.
You wouldn't think we would be able to validate a past life glimpse. But I mean, so much so that she has friends, and this is a weird thing for a friend to do, that to bother her will get up in her face and like breathe her air. I mean, it is a phobia. It's a thing. And so we were able to talk about how that was a chapter that was past for her, that was closed, that she could release. I mean, what a traumatic event to have crossed over in that way with a volcanic eruption. I mean, it was just profound. That was one of my favorite recent ones. Moving on, the third one. Amazing. Yeah. So, and I'm fascinated. This one's so interesting. This idea, you've heard of it, that theory of a higher soul self. Let's make up a percentage because I have no idea, but this idea that maybe only 10 or 20% of our soul energy is in the physical, in the earthly life, and that the rest of it is up in the higher energetic realms, guiding us. This higher soul self. Yeah, I always thought it was just a theory.
I call it the mothership resting behind.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it, this idea that there's more to us and that we can access it, right? I always thought it was just a theory, but I have proof. And you know how I am. I like my proof.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So my parents and I are estranged. And I probably 20 times now over the past 2 years have sat down across from a medium, and they go to give me a mediumistic reading, and they start describing my mother, her personality, the way she looked, her appearance, her preferences. I mean, we're talking piece after piece after piece of evidence. And I go, yes, that sounds like my mother. And then they'll bring through the message, right? We always want there to be a reason. Well, why have they come? This idea of healing. And, she'll apologize for things, and I can understand it, and it's relevant, and it's powerful for me. The catch is, my mother is still alive. She is still very much ensconced in her human self, and her human self has no idea whatsoever that she's coming through in readings to me. It is her higher soul self. Because we are estranged, it's the only way she can communicate with me. She's not in a coma. She's not under anesthesia, any of these things that typically as mediums we would feel like we needed to rely on. And I'm always nervous that mediums will think I'm tricking them, because I will let them go on because it's an incredible reading. And then I'll say, here's the part that's going to blow your mind. She's alive. Well, it's shifted the way I teach, because I'll now say to my students, do not ask, when you become aware of a soul being communicating through you, do not ask your sitter if their mother is in fact on the other side. If her soul is communicating through you to the sitter, there's a reason. There's healing to be had there. It doesn't matter if we're dead or alive. It's soul-to-soul communication, and it can be that aspect of our soul self that is not in the physical. I mean, it just blows everyone's minds, and I'm so excited about it.
That makes so much sense, because it's what I'm always asking for. The intention I always set is bring through the highest transformational love and the loving healing. However you do that, because they're in their incredible methodologies, they know what they're doing. But
thank goodness.
That's ultimately what I'm asking for. And sometimes the reading doesn't go as I expect. Of course, I'm not supposed to know these things. I'm like, oh, but it feels like it doesn't go right. But then towards the end of the reading, something gets said, and you can just see that spark go off in the sitter's face, and then that's when they lose it, and I lose it, and I'm like, oh yeah. But it's just like, oh wow.
Yeah. You can see a weight lift off of people. A good reading can save people decades of anguish. We are so good at punishing ourselves with our shame and our guilt and our would have, could have, should have,
Yeah.
And they don't want that for us.
The number, one of the reasons why I got into this was having seen so many well-known mediums actually having beautiful effects on their sitters, and seeing the sitters going into the reading really forlorn, really upset, really, like they're ready to jump off a bridge.
Yeah.
And they, at the end of the reading, they're just crying with joy of happiness, knowing that their loved one is still beside them, still loving them, still connected to them, still full of life. And they're just like, wow, this blows their mind. And it's that transformation. That's what makes me tick. That's the thing that I love doing it. I mean, what's your motive? Something similar to that, or what else drives you?
Oh, absolutely. Like you said, I love that term, transformational love, that you used. And for me, it's not even just witnessing it, it's feeling it. Just like how my friend's mother, washed me with that feeling of motherly, nurturing, unconditional love. When a reading goes really well, I mean, it's like you're vibrating in your body. It's better than drugs. Not that I've done a lot, but
well, you are out in Colorado.
I am in Colorado.
So
everything's legal here, right?
Anything's possible.
Yeah, anything is, but it's not my thing. But spirit energy, it's a better high than anything else I've ever experienced in my life. It's such a profound love. It's such an undeniable sense of being part of something bigger, of having found that puzzle piece that was missing my whole life, wanting there to be some magic out there, wanting there to be God, wanting there to be an afterlife, wanting to have proof of my eternal divinity. Man, every time I get it, or I'm part of the co-creation of someone else getting it, oh, that's the best. You can't manufacture that. You can't buy it. You can't take it. You can't ingest it. It's such a genuine experience. It gets me super excited.
That's so perfect. It's like, because after every people ask me often, oh, don't you get tired after your readings? I'm like, no, just the opposite. I'm infused with the energy and the love of spirit because I get a residual piece of whatever spirit's giving.
Yes, we are absolutely receiving it. Yes.
Being the instrument, I'm getting a little trickle of what they're giving.
Yes.
And I love that.
I do too.
I'll take it every day.
Best feeling in the world.
It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome. What would be the single most important recommendation that you think you might be able to give a listener who's listening in today on anything that falls into your specialty or anything at all?
Be the love you are seeking. I think so many of us go around looking for validation, looking for something to make us happy, right? We have got to take our power back from that mindset that anything external can bring us joy or make us happy. Now, certainly it can add to our joy and to our happiness, but happiness is a choice. And to tap into, to tune into our soul selves, we have to put a piece of duct tape on your inner critic. Cross their mouth. Enough that you are not the voice in your head. You're the one hearing the voice, and that is subconscious fear, and it's programming, and it's other people who, with maybe good intention, even projected their fears onto you, right? We all do it with our children to instill a sense of self-preservation. But at some point, when you are ready to thrive and not just survive this crazy life experience, you have to embody love, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's so well said. Because I can remember a time when I had my spiritual awakening, and others have said similar things, where I had this feeling of this overwhelming, unconditional love, and I was told that I was perfect, which of course I said, dude, you don't know what I've done in life. There's no way in any God's green earth that I could possibly be perfect. But it just kept on coming. Just kept on coming. You're perfect. I accept you 100% fully. I was like, what? And to this day, I remember that. I'm just like, can I go back to that moment?
Yeah.
But that's what's so wild. And that's what's waiting for us, is that eternal homecoming.
Right.
It's like the prodigal son, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. We come from love.
Right.
We are love, and we're here to share it however we can.
Yeah.
Small ways, big ways. It doesn't have to be big things.
Yeah. We come from love. We try to express love, and then we go home and be love again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome.
Be kind to yourself and others, of course.
Exactly. Hey, be kind. That's the big thing. And in fact, that's what Spirit's always saying, is that the more loving kindness you can give to other people while you're in the physical, the stronger your vibrations, and thus the better your ultimate arrival will be when you finally get to home.
Yeah. Yeah, let's make the most out of our time here.
Yeah. So, I mean, we can literally control where we desire to be when we go home. It's like, hey, I'm going to give everybody in the world loving kindness. Well, I'm going to level 5.
Right. Beam me up, Scotty. I don't want to mess around. Yeah. I want the best for the best, and we all deserve it. Yeah.
There you go. Of course, I'll probably wind up in level 2 or something.
You can come up and visit me. No.
Oh, thank you. No, actually, it's the other way around. You have to come down and visit me because I can't go up.
Oh, too funny.
Maybe, you and Tony Stockwell can come down and say hi.
Happy to. Oh, too funny.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
Take me with you.
Exactly. Well, great. Julie, this was absolutely wonderful having you on. I'm so glad that you came on today. And this is everything that we've been trying to discuss. How can we learn more about ourselves, learn more about what we are energetically, emotionally, and how we can take that and help others. And I think we covered everything. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Good luck with all your endeavors.
Oh, thank you. So how can people get in contact with you if they wanted to reach out?
Thanks. Yeah, my website is soaringheartenergies.com, and I'm obsessive about updating it. It's always got the latest Reiki class schedule if you're interested in, getting certified and upgrading your own energy infrastructure and maybe tuning into your intuition. I also host all sorts of events and retreats and workshops, and that's all on the website, soaringheartenergies.com. If you're interested in dipping a little toe in, if you've never received a reading before, or you just want to give it another try, perhaps, I host this wonderful online event called Soul Journey Sundays, and it's just grown and grown over the past several years. We now have over 50 readers spanning from Hawaii to Sweden and everything in between. And every ticketed participant is guaranteed 2 readings with 2 different readers. And so, of course, we have people coming back month after month after month because I'm careful to pair them with different readers each time, and they want to experience everyone's gifts and skills and tools. And it's just a really fascinating and really approachable, not expensive way to, check in and dip your toe into this world of reading and healing and spiritual goodness.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And all that will be on the show notes.
Perfect.
So if you're interested in all this and you want to find out more about Julie and more about what she does, and there'll be all the information in the show notes. So take a look at that. Also, a lot of references to some of the things we spoke about today, and the whole transcript will be in the show notes. The video will be in the show notes. So definitely take a look at www.spiritsbesideus.com. That's going to have everything there. And, if you are liking the show, by all means, rate and review the show so more people just like you can see the show, hear the show, and understand, just what it is that makes this such a wonderful topic. So with that, this is Chris signing off, and I will see you next Wednesday, and I will send you off with love and light. And until then, see you until then. Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirits Beside Us. Make sure you head over to the show notes for all the links and information on this week's episode. You can check it out at spiritsbesideus.com. If you love this episode as much as I did, head over to rate and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're looking for a community of spiritual seekers like yourself, make sure you join my Facebook page, Spirits Beside Us Podcast on Facebook. This is Chris signing off, sending you love and light. I can't wait to connect with you again on Wednesday.